This is GrantTalk, hosted by Libby Hikind, founder and CEO of GrantWatch and author of The Queen of Grants.
Hi, everybody. I'm Libby Hikind, founder and CEO of GrantWatch.com and the author of The Queen of Grants, From Teacher to Grant Writer to CEO. And I am your host today on GrantTalk. So excited to be with you because today we have Magda Galindo. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did. Thank you.
So excited to be with you today because today we have Magda Galindo from the FFAR Foundation, which is the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research. They spell it FFAR, and she is the Director of Grants Management. So important for us to hear about submitting an application and what the foundation is looking for. But before we get into that, let's find out, how did Magda become the Director of Grants Management? How'd you get involved here?
I don't think you can ever plan this as a career. I started in biomedical research, and I was looking at different ways to make an impact, right? Just make a difference. And I tried development for a little while, and then I quickly realized that I liked giving and administering the money more than fundraising for the money. And I am very organized. And so it was a path that worked out really well for me. And I have worked at different places. Again, biomedical research, the Foundation for National Institutes of Health, the American Diabetes Association, and recently here at FFAR. And that's how it came about. I mean, it's nothing that I had planned, but certainly I'm glad that I found it. And it's definitely been a rewarding career.
So with your background, nobody can submit an application that's not really going to do what it says it's going to do. You can read through the white noise, the dark noise, and everything else, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's almost like you know how to spot check, right? Or you no longer need to read a complete application. You just know exactly the spaces where people are a little bit more anxious, if you will, or they don't provide as much information as they could. And I think that's one of the great things about FFAR is that we provide a lot of support to our grantees and awardees as well. And so the application process is it can be a little bit complicated, but we're here to help every step of the way.
So what is your application process? Let's go segue right into that.
Excellent. So we fund, our research is funded in 4 major ways. We have our direct solicitations. We have our competitive requests for applications, or RFAs. We also do prizes and competitions, and we do consortia. So essentially is public-private stakeholders that come together to fund projects in an area that everyone is interested in. So our application process can vary, right? Because it depends on which of those mechanisms you come in through. I would say that some of our applications, they're considered a 2-stage process. So essentially you go through a letter of intent, or LOI step. And if it usually is just a 1-pager where you tell us what kind of research you're interested in pursuing and, whether or not it fits our needs or what we're looking for. If it does, you're then invited to submit a full proposal. And that's what, carries the meat and potatoes of the research that folks are interested in submitting and having reviewed.
On GrantWatch, I'm sure what we have are your competitive application, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What's available? When's it coming available?
Sure. So we don't have a grant cycle, if you will, not a standard grant cycle. We essentially fund applications all year round. The best way that I can, share with your viewers to keep on top of what we're offering is obviously through GrantWatch, but also by signing up through our newsletter, because that's where we advertise any new funding that we have available. We pride ourselves on building public-private partnerships. And because of that, new opportunities come up, whenever those collaborations come to fruition. So in terms of a competitive award or an RFA, typically those are two stages, right? So we talked about the LOI process, and if you're invited to submit a full proposal, once submitted, if it passes administrative review, then all of our RFAs are peer reviewed by a group of 3 to 5 subject matter experts. And after that peer review takes place, then it moves over to an advisory council review. And if it passes that review, then our executive director, Dr. Sahar Munchapitan, will sign off on any grant that, passes the rigorous process and gets funded by FFAR.
On GrantWatch, when we list your grants, they would be under what we call ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
If we knew that, let's say, the funding ran out for this particular year, we would take it down and then we put it back up when the next cycle of grant funding comes through. So I just want our viewers and listeners to understand that that's the term ongoing. Some grants have deadlines and some don't. And an ongoing grant, you always want to get in early after it's posted, because funds can run out, right? It's not a never-ending pocket.
Correct. So if we use the term ongoing, we do have an ongoing award opportunity. It's called our Rapid Outcomes for Agriculture Research, or ROAR. And so that is available all year round. There is no deadline, as you mentioned. And essentially it was set up to deploy urgent funding to support research and outreach and response to emerging or unanticipating threats to the nation's food supply and agriculture systems. But outside of that, for the most part, it's just we have them all year round, and all of our RFAs do have deadlines. People should definitely apply as soon as possible, but we make it very clear on the RFA how many projects we're looking to fund and what our total budget allowable amount is, so that people can make the educated decision to decide whether it is something they want to pursue or not.
So you have 4 priorities from what I understand.
Correct.
So what are they?
So our 4 priority areas, we have cultivating thriving production systems, and that's research that supports animal and crop systems, and it increases productivity, it combats pests and disease, and also supports animal welfare and safeguarding farmers' livelihoods. So, that would be like integrated animal health and welfare, economical viable systems. Our second priority area is sustaining vibrant agroecosystems, and that focuses more on pathways to adoption and forming agroecosystem decisions. And then we also, our third priority area is bolstering healthy food systems. And that focuses more on optimizing health and nutrition, also food manufacturing and processing, economic viability and bioeconomy, and then environmental contaminants and pollutants. And last but not least, our fourth priority area is strengthening the scientific workforce. So, of course, right now, we're very proud of the 8 scientific workforce programs that we have. And it focuses on expanding the talent pool, attracting new talent, and retaining said talent, right? Just because new investigators are so important to just the research itself and just everything that we do. So we're very, we work hard at bringing new scientists into the field and keeping them, right?
Keeping them.
But, for us here at FFAR, I think that for us, our mission is to build collaborative partnerships to support audacious science to address today's food and agricultural challenges. We know there are so many challenges right now with agriculture and just food security. And so we want a world in which pioneering, to what you were saying, collaborative science, because
how many people are now gluten-free? And
I don't know the statistic.
Right, but there are just,
yes.
I tell you that you hear it all the time. And why now?
Right. What's the difference between now and 20 years ago, right? Or just all the food allergies.
Right. Well, was everybody sick and they didn't know it? Or was the food better?
Right. And, it's one of those things. I was talking to a grantee that we have, and they were saying that they traveled to a farm where they have done organic research for I'm sorry, organic, they have organic produce, for the past 50 years, and they pride themselves, because of that. And we were just talking about how that's essentially your farmers markets were what happened in the past. And now we are spending a lot of resources to kind of like turn the wheel and go back to what we used to do to see if that makes a difference, right?
Right, because I can take something and look at the ingredients and I don't know half of what they're talking about. Whether I can be having it or not, or give it to grandchildren or not.
Right.
If I went to the farmer's market and stuck and put it in the blender, I know what I'm giving them, right?
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, I think that, just all the research that comes out in every aspect of it, right? Not only like, can I put it in the blender? Like, what am I feeding my body, my family? And also like, how did it get to my table? How do we help that farmer? How do we help that rancher, right? To make sure that it's accessible, affordable. So all that, some people don't think of that as research, but it is, right? Like you just have to make sure that you cover the whole spectrum.
Right. When we sit down at a table, we need to know where it came from. Where did it physically come from?
Right. But do we know?
Do we know? Right. Do we know? And if it says organic, I was reading something where certain numbers on fruits mean that it's really organic and some numbers mean that it was produced some other way. People don't know that unless they're looking on Twitter and they're reading these, and maybe they think it's a conspiracy theory just because it says that.
I don't think it's ever going to address everyone's concern, right? But I think that if you're a person that is, science based, then I think that definitely being aware of this research, and if you're if you are an industry partner or just a stakeholder that's interested in it, just investing in it, to get those answers and just be able to move the needle forward.
I think we're all stakeholders, and we
absolutely
recognize that what we put in our bodies is who we become, and we need to know what we're eating. And so happy that your organization is funding this and in a mindful way. That's very important because
definitely. Yeah, that's like a part of what we do. And, as I mentioned, we just want to make everything accessible and viable. That's the end goal. And, just to make sure that everyone just lives long, happy lives, if you will. And I think that, like I said, we cover the spectrum. I mean, we do research in, livestock, chickens, crops. So it's across the whole gamut, but, it's all with the intention that, from farm to table, right? In a way that it's healthy. The research has been done and, we feel good about the work that we do.
It's good. It's really good that at night you can go to sleep and know you did something for a lot of people.
And I certainly want to come back the next day.
That's right. And you have a lot of partnerships, right?
Yes, we currently have over 550 partnerships with stakeholders. And as I said, we pride ourselves with those partnerships. Sometimes it's really hard to connect the nonprofit side with the profit side. And we're that middle person that makes those connections and develops programs and projects where everyone can participate and just, see the fruit of the labor of all the research that is happening.
And what about the farmers they're somewhere remote and rural that don't necessarily have the internet to participate in your partnership calls? What do you do for them?
So some of our board members are farmers indeed. And so, there are areas where they can hopefully provide some of the information that we put out there. We also try to do different online subscriptions. We do have like social media, our newsletters and things of that nature, but it's word of mouth, right? That's why it's so important, because if something works for one farm or one farmer, hopefully they spread that. And then other people get to know the type of research that we're funding or the opportunities that we have out there for them to apply to.
So tell me one of the programs that you funded that make you very proud.
I wouldn't be able to give you just one, but I can tell you that right now we are working on a project out of Colorado State University. It's being led by Dr. Punya Nachapa, and it's around stern sawflies that are non-stinging wasp. They're insects that cause wheat yield loss across the United States. And in the past, they targeted spring wheat crops, but recently we've seen an emergence of them in Kansas, Colorado, and Nebraska, and that suggests that they are evolving to feed on winter wheat crops as well. And that is a huge problem because, as you can imagine, that will impact the crop system, impacting everyone across the U.S. And so
it's bad enough if they're affecting the spring crops.
Right, but it was almost like you could plan for it, but now that we're seeing them emerging and possibly targeting winter crops, then that is a problem, right? And so right now what they're doing is they are trying to identify resistant genes in wheat itself and trying to develop predictive models to determine the likelihood of wheat stem sawfly infestation to keep it from happening, or just trying to see exactly what it means, if it's crossing over to winter crops. So I bring this as an example just because if you think about it, right, we're talking about a pest that you normally wouldn't think much of, but is impacting our crops. And if it does impact both spring and winter, it could have like really serious results in the U.S. agriculture as a whole and just on everything altogether. So, I'm proud of the project, but also just to show you the breadth of the type of research that we see and just like the very innovative ways.
If anybody looks at their bread or their crackers and they turn it around, they'll see wheat. So then now imagine everything else is going up. Can you imagine the cost of your bread and your crackers and some of your cereals and other things made with wheat? So, and wheat is what we get flour from. So your cakes, your donuts, everything.
Yes. No, absolutely. And that's the crop space. And then if you want another example, right now we also are funding a project over with Plum Island, the Animal Disease Center. So that's USDA ARS. And I don't know if you ever heard of African swine fever virus, but it's also known as ASFV. And it's a very contagious fatal disease in pigs, and it spreads very quickly. And right now there is a vaccine to mitigate the spread of ASFV. And so Dr. Douglas Gladue at USDA with other researchers are trying to pinpoint the vital proteins involved in the immunity and infection to try to develop a vector-based subunit vaccine. So essentially, it's like a vaccine that includes a component of the virus to stimulate an immune response for ASV, which is so important, again, to the animal, to our ecosystem, and just agriculture as a whole. And
if they give animals vaccines and then you eat you're eating the meat of the animal, you might get some of that as well. So they have to take it a step further, right?
Without the vaccine, the animal is sick, yes.
Right.
And so they're trying to develop ways of keeping the animal from getting sick and hopefully not impacting the whole production system.
And a lot of times we've heard a lot about bird flu, right?
Yes. And right now, also in cows, I'm sure that you've heard. And so that's where our ROAR program comes in. So because it's an emerging threat, we encourage anyone that is doing any research in that space to look at our ROAR program and just submit. Our ROAR program is a 1 year, as I said, rapid outcomes, and essentially is designed to provide funding for 1 year to move to the next step, right? To the bigger project, to something that may require additional funding in terms of dollars. Indefinitely. So, we're always looking for those types of projects and just keeping an ear out on everything, that might be an emerging threat. And all of the research that we fund is essentially, it's guided by our stakeholders, by the need and demand. We're always listening and always interested in anything of that nature.
So when you get an application, what makes you toss the application?
Not compliant with administrative word limits, just attachments. If it's missing, attachments that we require. So missing requirements automatically makes it not make it through the cut. Just because we receive depending on the grant opportunity, we may receive a lot of applications for that opportunity, and we provide all the support beforehand. We have a robust pre-award team. We provide information. We have our scientific program directors, as I mentioned. So not being able to submit an application that's administratively complete, it just we don't have the time to go back and fix that. So that's definitely one of the things, just
They'll probably lose faith in the applicant because they're doing research that's highly scientific, and if they can't follow directions for an application, then how are they going to do the science?
Well, I think like we all move at such a quick pace that, I don't think it would be completely fair to like ding them completely, right? But we do spend a lot of time drafting our RFAs. We are very clear on the page limits, word limits, and all the information that's going to be required, that by the time you get to the application, that's probably the fifth time you've seen everything that is required. And at that point, if you're not able to submit it for whatever reason, right, whether you didn't read or you didn't have it, then we need to keep moving, right? Because we want to fund the research as quickly as possible and be able to address what, the need that RFA might be bringing.
On GrantWatch, we have a grant detail page. So when somebody's a subscriber, they get beyond the paywall, they can see the one-page synopsis, and then they have the link to your application. So tell everybody, this is just enough for you to go to your board and decide, should you start applying and look into it further. But all the directions, complete application are in that link straight to your website.
Correct.
Everything.
Yeah, and it also has eligibility requirements. Some of our applications have them. And if there are any, they are listed on their RFA. And I don't know if your viewers know, but we were funded through the Farm Bill in 2014, and we are a nonprofit foundation. And so one of the requirements is that for every federal dollar that we spend, we need to match that federal dollar for the most part, for always. But what that means is that every funding opportunity may require match. And that's also important to know, because you may, as a grantee or as an applicant, you may need to fundraise the match portion of the grant if match is required. And the reason why I say if match is required is because for every federal dollar that we give, FAR is able to leverage that to an overmatch, so a 1.4 or $1.40. So because we're 40 cents over the required 1-to-1 match, we can take that funding and sometimes supplement the match for the applicant, or, be able to look at other funding opportunities where we might have a little bit more flexibility. But that's because of our public, private partnerships.
Right.
And
you have all these partners. You could say, hey, this is a great application. It's going to help mankind tremendously. Are you willing to chip in? Right.
Well, usually we do it the other way around, right? Like they think the opportunity is so great that they already chipped in, but they chip in extra. And so it gives us that flexibility because there's now more than the 1-to-1 match, right? And so that's very important to note on the RFA, because then that will then entail, if there is match required that the grantee or the applicant needs to bring in, then they need to either, ask their institution to see if that's a source that they could tap into, or reach out to their development department if they have one, or their own contacts to see, who can help with bringing in that match.
So what happens with all this great research? Where is it publicized?
So on our website, we have all of the different projects that we have funded and are currently funding, so that people can see the great research that we're doing. We also have an outcomes team that is putting together all the information to show our stakeholders and just, show our taxpayers, where the funding is going. We put out an annual report every year to just give a snapshot of, just what kind of projects we funded and, the type of results that they're yielding.
So the grant writers sometimes are not the ones that are the actual researchers, right?
All right.
And at GrantWatch, we send them this wonderful latte mug as a gift when they let us know that they get awarded. So every time somebody passes their desk, somebody knows that they won a grant.
That's their bell.
It's only given to them, so you don't find this anyplace else.
That is great. And I love that cup, by the way. Maybe I should become a grant writer. I can get one myself.
And then we have the book as well, The Queen of Grants, to help people pay attention and get grant ready, and help them with that and show them how to use AI, but not to write their application.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's something that's happening right now.
And you can tell.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can tell. Definitely.
And I've been told by funding sources that sometimes they can line up grant applications and see 3 or 4 of them that they know were written by AI. They're just so similar.
Yeah, no, our scientific program directors are the ones that look at, the core objectives and goals of the applications. But just from my own experience with AI, not necessarily with grants, but you can tell when it's written by someone that is not human. And it's just in the way that things are described, or some things are just a little bit, I don't know how to word it, but like, unless you give the command in a certain way, you can tell when it was not a human hand that had a touch into it. So you can certainly tell. And I think it's great to have it to assist, but certainly not to replace, right?
Right. So if you have the needs and you have the needs and you can upload them, let's say, to AI, you can ask AI to create 4 goals from those needs.
Yeah, but you wrote the needs yourself.
You wrote the needs because you know what the needs are. That's why you're applying. And now you just want it to be in goal form, let's say.
Yeah, and hopefully you already have your goals in mind, right?
Right.
I think it's very...
These are my goals. Can you fix the English a little bit better or make it shorter or something? But you have to read what you get from AI. You can't just submit it.
Yeah, but I think now with collaboration being such a huge part of research, I think that, that interaction is more crucial than ever. If you have 4 or 5 teams working together to put a proposal together, or just, submit something of that nature, I don't think I'm not going to say it's not possible, but I can imagine it would be very, very challenging, because now you have 4 or 5 sets of ideas that you need to combine to submit a project, right? So it's interesting. I mean, I love the way that we are moving forward with technology, but I think it's just sometimes fear of the unknown. And sometimes it's just, we don't want it to replace all the great work that all of our researchers are doing. I don't think it ever will. But it's just like, you just, I'm not as familiar with it as other people, but it's just, I just love reading what's in the mind of a person, as opposed to like a summary that was made by something else.
And the backstory comes from the person.
Yes. You can't generate that.
You can fix the grammar, but that's about it. The backstory. I have hearts all over the book, because I feel if somebody's really passionate about what they want to research or create or implement, it should come off the page.
Yes. And I think that's what research is all about. I think that I can tell you all of our researchers, all of our applicants or grantees alike, they're very passionate about what they're submitting, right? And it's unfortunate when sometimes the administrative piece makes us not move the application forward, because the passion's there, but unfortunately certain things were missing. We tend to try to tell people what was lacking, so that in case they want to resubmit an application, if an opportunity like the one they applied to ever comes back again, for the most part, we do give comments back from our peer reviewers, so that even if they don't come back too far, they know the general areas where they could potentially make changes and just improve the research they submitted.
That's so helpful for a grant writer as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that you want our listeners and viewers to know about that we didn't touch on today?
I think you don't lose anything by trying, right? Like, that's how I operate. And I think that, if you see an opportunity that is something that you're interested in, or something that your organization does, but you're not certain where to start, reach out to us. We can help you. As I mentioned, FAR is very unique with, the partnerships that we have. If you don't know if you have the match, reach out to us. We may be able to like assist, or at least guide you in the right direction. And then also, just stay up with everything that we do. Sign up for our newsletter, check our website, look at the projects that we have funded to see if it's something not the same, obviously, but something similar, or just to look at the ideas that have received funding, just so that you see how innovative our projects may be. And just don't be shy, right? If it fits within our priority areas, we're interested. And if it's something that we end up not funding, we will tell you why, and hopefully create an opportunity either back at FAR or elsewhere, right? But always be on the lookout, always be in the know. And with GrantWatch, I mean, you have the opportunities at your fingertips. Just do the searching, and just reach out to us if you have questions about the RFA.
And we have a category, farming and agriculture, And I think that if it's not on FAR, it's some other organization that can help fund them if that's what their organization is all about.
Absolutely.
And it's the same advice. If you're on GrantWatch, look at the applications, read through them. If it's not there today, it may be there tomorrow. Don't give up. We send out so many articles that have been written about grant writing and searching for grants that are very helpful.
And it's so important.
Right? Stay in it.
Yeah. Yeah, just like researchers, right? They're always looking, they're always reading, and so are we, right? We have to keep up with the trends. We have to keep up with everything. And so, as you mentioned, you provide all this great information. So do the research, look into it. And if you have questions, ask the question. We're very friendly. We love questions. And so,
GrantWatch, we answer everybody's questions through email, chat, and phone, constantly in communication.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I would say is that we've been there, right? We have either written a grant, done the administration, not gotten a grant, not gotten funding, received funding. And I don't have a cup, but I've gotten some funding. But the thing is, we've all experienced what everyone is experiencing, right? And so we're happy to provide any assistance, however way we can, because we've been through it, the happy days and the not so great days. But, however we can help, we're here for that.
Okay, so I want to just repeat what I say in every single video. If you want to hear more from funding sources, more from grant awardees and B2B businesses, you need to subscribe so that we can keep getting these videos out to you on GrantTalk. It's free to subscribe to GrantTalk. Just click the subscribe button. It's on the GrantWatch YouTube channel. And every time we publish a new one, you'll know. So, but GrantWatch does have a subscription fee in order to keep us all going and doing the work that we do. So thank you so much, Magda. I really appreciate your time today. Keep helping us eat the right foods and protecting our environment and our agriculture.
Absolutely. We'll do whatever we can. And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and good luck to all of your grant seekers out there.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to GrantTalk, powered by GrantWatch. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this GrantWatch channel. Please consider subscribing to GrantWatch.com, and you can find the book, The Queen of Grants, by going to GrantWatch.com/book. Thank you again for spending your time with us.